Tonight I want to discuss a little thing called role-playing games. One of which is a game called Dungeons and Dragons. But before I get into that, I want to make clear that there is a lot of different games out there. Role-playing games, from children's games all the way up to adults, and from adults down into children's games. There are different versions of it, different types, if you wish. With adults, there is more of the role-playing games to please one's wife, husband, or boyfriend or girlfriend. Because I know a lot of people today are having relations out of wedlock. They think it must be the new cool or the new it, I guess you could say. And then you have the dress-up type role-playing games that they do to, say for an example, the doctor-patient type role-playing game for relations. Then you have other types of games like, there's a few of them out there that I've come across that people have brought to my attention to know what I was thinking about them, what I think about them, I should say. And there are different types of stuff from BDSM to role-playing as of, say, your boyfriend or husband pretending to be a burglar, to have relations with his wife, who plays the innocent, attackee. Now, I never really got into that one, those kind of games, because I see them as pointless and useless, because if you can't be with your girlfriend or wife, husband, boyfriend, and see them for who they are, and if you're not physically attracted to them in that way, what's the point of doing dress-up? Seriously, I really don't see it. But what I do know is that there are other kinds of games as well. One of which, as I stated, is this game called Dungeons and Dragons. It is based on fantasy role-playing. And there's a lot of people that do this stuff. I'm talking from the role-playing to please your partner to right up to just trying to escape reality by playing these type of games where you dress up and act like a vampire, or, I don't know, say Abraham Lincoln, for all I know. Depends on the person, I guess, or the individual. And basically, this one is based on a book and cards where you make mystical characters, and it's a lot like a game of solitaire, or kind of like Yu-Gi-Oh, if you wish. I guess that's the best way to describe it. This one was actually brought to my attention, this Dungeons and Dragons one, by my brother, the Pagan High Priest. He and his wife play this all the time, and they've been wanting me to join in. Personally, I don't see the point in it, but I don't mind trying it out, maybe once, just see what it's like. That's just me. I don't mind trying something once or twice. I mean, who knows, maybe I'll like playing that kind of game, I don't know. But, one of the things that I have noticed is that in my book, the Satanism Scare, it was called Violent Fantasy, as a section of it, on page 112. And I was reading down through the crusading groups, and which is used violence during fantasy role-playing in Dungeons and Dragons. One of the comebacks is this, and I want to read it to you. It says, and I quote, "Not only is this game based on magic and the supernatural, It involves violence, serious violence, the type of violence not allowed on TV. There is hack and slash murder, rape, thievery, pillaging, and terrorism. And in the game, it is natural and expected for a character to do those things. A character must at least murder and rob in order to survive. Okay? Now, this is my point. People like this are closed-minded. They think that, like Satanism, it is all about murder, rape, pillaging, and basically crime. If this game is so violent, why don't you also get chutes and ladders, off the market? Or, I don't know, how about Yu-Gi-Oh games? Now, those are violent. You got all these kids playing these little card games which are supposedly attack and defensive modes, a lot like the martial arts, which is offensive and defensive techniques. So, if Dungeons and Dragons is so dangerous, so violent, why don't you look at these other games like Yu-Gi-Oh? Or, what's that other one there? Say, for an example, a lot of those kids' games that deal with this stuff. Personally, you could sit there and talk about violence in the movies. Violence is not the problem. We live in a society where, in today's world, it is about restraint. It is about denying the animal nature. If somebody wishes to roleplay, that's between two consenting adults, or a group, such as Dungeons and Dragons. And these people know that these types of games are responsible, that it is considered fantasy, as in role-playing, make pretend. And yet, you allow children to play these other games, which are equally as violent, like G.I. Joe's, or for an example, what is that game called? Touch football, for an example. Or tag football, or whatever you want to call it. Where you capture the flag that's on the back of a football player's belt. You gotta take it off. That's equally as dangerous because, they can take a heel in the face. But yet, you're not gonna do that. So, people are a bunch of fucking hypocrites. Literally. And that's the way I see it, because you sit there and you come at Satanism, you come at paganism and Wicca, claiming that it's of the devil, and yet that it's so, how should I put this, that it's so violent, and that it's about sacrificing a child, or using a woman as an altar that is used for sexual gratification. Well, guess what? Nobody under 18 goes into a satanic ritual without first knowing the history. Second of all, knowing why the ritual is being done. And thirdly, without their consent and that of their parents. Now, if a woman, for an example, becomes an altar, is going to be the altar, it is her voluntary stature. It is up to her to volunteer, or not. And if anything after the ritual is completed that takes place, say, relations between a man and a woman, or a woman and a woman, man and a man, well, guess what? They're two consenting adults, or a group of adults, that can do that. That's their choice at that point. Now, just like this, the same can be said about Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I don't know much about the game. I don't know much about the role-playing stuff because I've never really been into it. But, as I've said, you people need to lighten up. You need to, get off your high horses. This is nothing more than Christian propaganda being placed out there, spreading fear, and trying to get their way in the world. They're hypocrites. And it's not just Christians. I mean, sure, there's a lot of Christians that actually live and walk and speak the word in the way of their God. I'm not saying that there isn't. However, there are those who basically say, well, if you're not with our God, you're going to hell. That game is of the devil. It's going to take you straight to hell. Well, you know what? Rather to serve to hell than in a heaven with a God that's got a stick up his ass. Seriously. But, now I'm not trying to blaspheme against your God. I got nothing but respect for you and your religion. Your religion is sound. It's the people I have a problem with. Now, when you start judging simple games, child games like this, that's when somebody's got to put their foot down and say, enough's enough. Grow up, get a life, and let people live their own life. You deal with your own family, your own little world. You go to your little puny church, and you live out your life the way you want to. But when it comes to other people and their faiths, the type of games they play, keep your nose out of it. And that is truly the way I see it. Because I don't like morons sitting there telling me what I can and can't do. If my brother and his wife wishes to play these games, that's on them. That's their choice. If I choose to join in on that game, that's my choice. And if I don't, well, that's my choice as well. But, till next time, I hope you learned something from this, and I hope I got my point across. So, hail Satan, have a good night, and I'll post on something else tomorrow. Alright? Adios.